It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So, my friends, we hear all the time about opioids, the problem of opioids, the crisis. And sometimes we say, well, how does that affect me? You know, I don't use drugs. You know, something I should be concerned about. Well, the problem is it does affect every one of us. And today, on today's show, we're going to talk about that. We do have a recovering addict here on the show. And something I think is fantastic happening is the Times Shamrock Standard Speaker put together something that I think is to be very, very beneficial to everybody. And we want to talk about that today. My guest today, no stranger to the Sam Lesante Show, John Patton, who's the operation manager at the Standard Speaker, and Travis Snyder. You've seen him on the show before. Travis is recovering for 7 years. But there's a lot involved here, okay? And I'll get into it as to how does it affect you who maybe could care less about opioids. It's a serious problem, and it's a crisis. Hey, John, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure, as always.
And Travis, nice to have you on the show.
Grateful to be here, Sam.
Okay, I thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. John, back in January, you called me and you said, Sam, I'm thinking about doing something, you know, on this opioid crisis, et cetera, and you discussed it. So what led you up? What led you to get involved? And then we'll talk about this big event they're having on May 23rd up at the Wiltsie Center. What was the reason for that?
You know, I think I realized that, you know, we have the ability to make a difference here in Hazleton. I mean, obviously from the Standard Speaker side of it, but also from SSP TV and WYLN. We have the ability to get the word out probably better than anybody else in this area. And so I thought to myself, you know, obviously we hear a lot about this. You know, one of the things that we're interested in finding out is when people come to a specific event, they're there to hear about it, or maybe because they've already been involved in it. What I thought was there are people out there who don't even realize that they are caught up in this. Maybe not personally, but maybe a friend of theirs who they don't have any idea, or a relative that they don't have any idea is already in the middle of this crisis. And so hopefully what we can do is we're going to talk you know, on the town hall about a lot of different topics, but you know, one of the things that we hope to get out is, you know, ways for people to, you know, kind of understand what it is, know that they're part of it, and then if they do find out that they are involved in it or someone in their family's involved in it, what to do. There is, you know, obviously there's some great treatments that are out there and some great facilities, and I'm not smart enough to do it myself. But what I was able to do is put together, we'll say, a coalition of healthcare professionals and people who have gone through it, like Travis, that people can see that yes, while it is a crisis, and we need to do something about it, there is a way out.
Well, according to what I've been doing some research, there's over 136 people die every day from overdosing on opioids. And up to 30% of these patients that are prescribed opioids misuse them. So the thing I like about this, and I discussed this, you know, you talk and talk, okay? But the thing is, searching for solutions, okay? That's, to me, the key thing, okay? So, as I tell everyone, and the more you're educated about something, John, I think the better is you can understand what it's about. If you're not educated, and I think this is the purpose of what we're going to be doing. We have Dr. Mead coming on, and I'll mention some of the other people. Mm-hmm. These people have been, you know, on this banner trying to eliminate as much as they could the opioids. From your perspective, as a father, as a husband, as a citizen, you know, and I just said on opening, some people say, well, why should I be concerned about this, okay? Why should they be concerned about it?
Well, I think for all those reasons. I mean, obviously, as a father, I have 3 kids, and so, you know, a lot of them are going through some of this stuff. And like you said, it may have to do with surgeries and people using the opiates after that, or you know, that being a part of it. But also, as a citizen, it affects you because, you know, I mean, there are going to be people that may be in your job space, maybe driving a vehicle, that all this stuff is interacts with you, like whether you like it or not. You are involved in this one way or another. And my point to this whole thing was, yes, we talked about it, and Travis and I talked about this as well, is, searching for solutions. There are solutions out there. There's already solutions that can help. Solutions now, part of the stuff that we have now that we're able to use that wasn't available a couple of years ago. So while there is stuff out there and we can use those, we're always looking until it's eliminated. We're always going to be looking for new solutions. Use the ones we have and find more.
Okay, so what would be your synopsis of saying why are you having this meeting or this public gathering, and what would you want people to get out of this particular town hall meeting?
Well, that's a great question. So, and I've been asked that several times. Somebody says to me, what would you consider a win? A win would be one more person who has information that didn't have it before. But I think we have the ability to affect a lot of people, whether they're in that theater or if they're watching it on TV. One of the things that I was very cognizant about, and you're right, we've had these meetings now probably since beginning of February when we finally got to them, was, this is going to be on TV, and what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to grab the attention of someone who doesn't know that they have an issue. And something that Dr. Mead might say, or Dr. Castillo might say, or Eileen Panzarella might say would be, as you're in the theater, or if you're listening and watching it on TV, you'd be like, wow, I did not know that. And yes, I have that situation where my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, somebody is in this, and how do I get them out? And so the panels will be broken up into prevention, into treatment, and into recovery, and we're hoping to walk people through these things. And it's only the first of three. I mean, we have three scheduled. We have one now, we have one in August, and we have another one in November. But our goal would be to get to one person, and I think that this is the format that we can do that. Those people will then spread the word, and I would think that by the time next Thursday rolls around, this information is going to be out there. It's in today's paper, but we want people to come, but if they can come, they have the ability to see it on TV. But those are the people that we're trying to reach, people who wouldn't necessarily come to the theater to an opioid, crisis town hall, but people that might get caught watching your show or might on WYLN might see that and say, listen, I need to at least be a part of it or find out what's going on, and so for 90 minutes, we're not going to solve all the problems, but hopefully we can, and I said it in one of the other shows, we could take a bite out of the problem and do it a little bit at a time.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you're looking at what we're all about is bringing information. I always like to bring information and then say, okay, fine, what are some of the solutions? And that's why I really like about the fact searching for solutions, okay? We have Travis here today, who was recovering for 7 years, and I'm going to talk about your story. John, sometimes facts are ugly things, and when you look at some of these things, it says, how can a person help? So if I'm sitting here and I'm watching the Sam Lesante show, or if I'm watching it on our news, or if I'm watching it on TV the night that it's going to be broadcast, what can I do? And I think Travis will have an answer, but I'm going to ask you, John, what can I do as an individual person to help with this particular crisis?
Well, that's a great point, and I think this is part of it is you got to find out about it. You got to learn about it. You got to spend some time doing it. And I think that would be, you can find out then where you can help. And a lot of it may be referring somebody to an agency or taking them there. But we don't know how each person can help until they have enough information about it. And that's what this town hall is going to be. It's going to be about giving out information and getting it out to the public. And hopefully from that standpoint, they can then realize how they can help.
You said something about, how it affects everybody. I don't know whether the person was on opioids, but I understand there was a train crash in Philadelphia and one in New York, either the subways or trains. And when they found out that the person was on drugs, okay, and here again, I don't know, I can't relate it to, was it an opioid problem, but the point is it was a drug problem. And so now that particular person cost a lot of lives, all right, because they were abusing drugs. Hence why I said, why should we be concerned? Well, you know what? You know, there are people driving, there are people, you know, using them. And when I get to you, Travis, we're going to talk about some of the experiences you had, okay, and how dangerous it is. Before, you know, when we grew up, John, we were always told, don't worry about the neighbors, that's her business. Whatever the neighbors do, that's their business. You just take it your business. Whatever. But now it is everybody's business. Okay, am I correct?
Absolutely. And I think when people listen to some of these, they'll realize how much of their business this affects them.
Now, let me talk, before I go to break, you know, it's a nice ad in the paper, you know. Some of the people that are going to be participating here, okay, and we certainly want to thank all of them for participating. Lehigh Valley Health Network is one of your...
yeah, they're the sponsor. Lehigh Valley actually approached about being the sponsor of it, and we were more than happy to have them come aboard. But there are a lot of people who want to help. Again, you realize when you do something like this, when you take the lead on it, it's not my project, it's our project. Sure, yeah. But there's a lot of people who have stepped up to help.
It's interesting because it's nice to see that the people in the area, I know you're going to really enjoy Dr. Mead. I mean, he's been talking about this. He's probably one of the leaders. He's with Coordinated Health, of course, but does a fabulous job. Folks, I'm talking to John Patton, and we'll be talking to Travis Snyder, who was recovering for 7 years. But there's a big town hall happening Thursday, May 23rd. It'll be broadcast live on WILN. We'll be covering news parts, so our agreement was we'll do promos, they'll do the live, and we're working together, which is the way it should be in the media, okay? Unfortunately, sometimes egos pop up, and that's no good. I think you should work to help the community. But it's 6:30 to 8 p.m. At the Wiltsie Center, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But the interesting thing is we're going to talk about Travis. And you know, you're going to be surprised, folks, of what Travis has to talk about. Particularly how he started and the age he started at. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. 24/7, ssptv.com. You know, we produce over 21 local original programming, and you can watch all of the shows. Very informative shows, health shows, politics, etc. A show like we're doing today, talking about the opioid crisis and what will happen on Thursday. Download our app, SSP TV, and you can watch it all anywhere in the world. My guest today, John Patton, who is the operation manager of the Standard Speaker, our media partner, and Travis Snyder. And we're talking about the opioid crisis and searching for solutions. The point is searching for solutions and how it affects everybody. A big event is happening on Thursday. Please, if you get a chance, go. There'll be a tremendous panel there. Before we end the show, we'll talk about it again, but it's Thursday, May 23rd, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Wiltsie Center. Travis, first of all, I appreciate you're doing a lot of good. I know that I met you here when Lisa was interviewing you. Okay, so let's go back in history a little bit. How old are you, first of all?
38 years old.
You are? Yeah. You look like you're 27, 28, doesn't he, John? He looks like a kid.
I feel it. I feel young.
Yeah, you're 38.
Yes.
God bless you. Wow.
Let me take my hat off.
Yeah,
there's the ball.
Well, I have a little bit up here, you know. So when did you start getting involved with drugs?
You know, I started experimenting at a young age. I sort of had that thirst for life, competitive nature.
At what time? When did you start?
About 14 years old, I started experimenting, smoking cigarettes and different things.
So you start smoking, but okay, then what happened after smoking? You went into marijuana?
Alcohol, marijuana. By the time I was 16 years old, I tried heroin for the first time. Cocaine.
At 16 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. Was it easy for you to get?
No. No, it wasn't easy.
What was... at that point in time, you were in school, of course, right?
Yep.
Was there any kind of educational system that people would come in and talk about the dangers of drugs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I specifically remember we had a class, I think I was in 8th grade. Now our high school is 7th through 12th, Tri-Valley High School. And they did have a program come in. I think it was some 80s hair band. And it was interesting because I remember the music, but I was just goofing off. I didn't really hear the message. So yeah, there was an effort, and I think a lot of it had to do with alcohol and things like that.
Okay, so these things don't happen overnight. Okay, was it your peer group that you were traveling with, or was it lack of really understanding the damage it could cost you in your life?
Well, addiction is a chronic, progressive, and sometimes fatal disease. And for me, everybody's pathway to how they ended up being, having a substance use disorder is different. For me, it was a prolonged use over time. It had nothing to do with any kind of adverse childhood experiences. I just had a competitive nature and an excitement and that I wanted more out of life. And I guess maybe I was just trying to find a place where I belonged, and the place where I belonged maybe was in that lifestyle, that party, drug culture lifestyle. Unbeknownst to my parents at the time, I was partaking in those activities.
I've had many officials on the show, district attorneys, state cops, head of political organizations, and we all talk about, coroner of Skook County has been on the show, Dr. Moylan, and we talk about the dangers of marijuana, okay? Other than for health purposes, I'll put that aside. Do you feel that by you experimenting with marijuana gave you the desire to either drink more and then get something a little bit more powerful? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want you to tell me how you felt at that time.
Sam, I believe it really never had anything to do with what I was using. I think the core of it was why. Why was I using it? What part of me was missing? What wasn't there in place? What didn't I know or understand? What was lacking, maybe, that would have me take a substance? So it was never really about marijuana or the alcohol. It was the why, and that was the bigger question.
What was the why?
Come to find out through my recovery journey, my why was finding an identity, a place of belonging and acceptance amongst my peers. And it just so happened some of my peers, I was hanging out with an older crowd, and to feel that community acceptance amongst my peers and friends, I chose to engage in those activities because there was a welcoming feeling. And so if you think about what's going on right now, there's probably a lot of youth and young people, even adults, that are finding acceptance amongst those types of people that are struggling with substance use disorders, and a sense of belonging. Although it is chaotic and it can cause a lot of harm to the individual, their families, and the community, they still are feeling a place of acceptance. It's that being uncomfortably comfortable place. And that leads to coming to understand and know the disease of addiction and how it affects our minds, our thoughts, our attitudes, and our behaviors. And so that's what's important about an event like this, is it's going to open up the conversation and show people how this is truly affecting people, not just on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, and then how that goes out into the community and affects the rest of the people. Like you said in the beginning, how does it affect me?
Before I get into the turmoil of your life and what happened with drugs, okay, I have 3 grandchildren, okay, 15 and 14, 2 14s, 1 15, going to be 16. Same ages that when you started. So when you say the why, okay, there's certain things parents could say. There's certain things, they'll hear from their teachers or they hear from their peer groups. Not from peer, but they hear from, either a priest, a pastor, a rabbi, whatever. What do you tell those 14-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids, and even, like you said, in 8th grade, it's starting younger, which is sad, John. They start in those. What do you tell the young people, and what do you tell the parents or guardians?
I don't necessarily think you tell them anything, you ask them. Okay. You ask them, what do you value most in life? What is it about life that you value? And so if you ask them, because I think for so long we want to tell people what to do, how to think, how to take on the problem. I think we need to open up the conversation and ask your grandchildren, what it is that you value the most out of life. For me, when I speak to youth, I always try to encourage them to put value on matters of the spirit. Love, kindness, connection, and creativity. Find those things in your life. So yeah, it's tough because we want to say, don't do drugs, and obviously we don't want it can be destructive and unhealthy, and it's an important conversation to have. But I think we need to listen as well.
Absolutely. Moving on in your drug addiction, so you start experimenting 14, 15, 16. So what happened? What happened in your life then?
So it progressively got worse. I never really got to the why. By the time I was 23 years old, I started intravenously using heroin. I had snorted before that, and then for about 7 years, I struggled with shooting up drugs. I went to rehabs a few times, never fully surrendered. It wasn't until December 22nd, 2011, I was arrested, put in Skook County Prison. Spent the first 30 days battling, fighting. I wanted out, but ultimately, God's love through Christ, through my family, through that unconditional love, and then that support system that never left me, which is important.
That's an interesting thing, and unfortunately, sometimes the solution is that when you're in a situation, you need medication after that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And sometimes you're struggling, and so either insurances or something stops that you cannot get the necessarily medicine, and then you're in that, you're out and you need something, okay? What do you think, do you think that there should be provisions made, whether it's statewide, federal-wide, or whatever, to help these people with their medication in order to get on the right path?
Yeah, I believe that people should.
Did you have that problem? Did you need medication after when you were coming off?
No, I didn't. But that's where the danger kind of lies. So, I had my awakening in jail. Now, let's just say I would have got released from jail after 30 days. Yeah. After about 30 days, the opioids would have been clean out of my system. And say I would have went out into the street and didn't have a support system in place. Yeah. And then I would have went and got some, what I thought was heroin, this is part of the crisis, is what people are thinking is heroin is actually fentanyl, which is a much more potent, deadly replacement for heroin. And that's partly what's killing a lot of people. So to add to that, having a support system, a community that supports and stands by people in recovery, breaking down that stigma by having people become educated on the issue. But also, so for me, my community, when they found out I was in recovery, by the grace of God, they supported that and they stood behind me. Now, I won't say that is for every individual. So I hear there's a vibrant recovering community here in Hazleton. And I would say to the community of Hazleton out there that, support people that are in recovery, support those who are here with the solutions, because there are a lot of solutions. There's meetings, there's treatment, there's actually a couple of recovery residences here in Hazleton as well that have people that are living, working, and recovering together in a healthy, clean environment.
You said something that is very important. You said you want to find out the reason why. So sometimes when you go to different things, people are telling you what to do and why to do it, okay? But the thing is, how do we get into that person's mind and saying, why? What are you looking for in life? So the message at this, some of the seminars here should be getting to the person and finding out why.
Surrounding those people, a community of people and a fellowship of people surrounding those people with love and support.
What would you change different in your life? Were your parents, were they supportive? I mean, did your parents know you were using?
My parents were the best parents I could ever ask for. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything for the simple reason that through the chaos came purpose and passion. In other words, I think that maybe if at one point in my life I would have stopped using drugs and just kind of got clean, I wouldn't have came into this spiritual way of life, this God-realized way of life. I have a relationship with God that allows me to see the bigger picture, and then through that, I want to help others.
I'm smiling because I just feel, I keep telling people in life, you look at people with substance. And if they don't have substance, and I feel so bad for people who do not have a faith, because you turn to God and you need something. And I don't care whether it's Protestant, Catholic, or just have a faith. I think it's so vital to have some kind of faith and live it. These people that have, especially with the young children they're not taking them to church, they're not taking them to synagogues, they're not taking them to services. They're doing such damage to their children. Am I just whistling Dixie here? Because believe me, I'm a sinner. But the point is, you found something that has substance. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Coming to faith is a process for all people, and it happens everywhere in life, not just at our worship services. It happens everywhere in our community, every aspect, our working life. And, you know, for me, it was pretty much all that I had left. It was I was locked up in jail, and I called out to God, help me, God. And God was a small pinhole of light, and that light expanded because I had a realization. And yeah, you know, that's what I say, value matters of the spirit, love, kindness, connection, creativity. For me, that led me into my Christian faith as well. But it started with just surrender and just admitting that I'm powerless and turning my life over to God.
Well, good for you. I'm so happy you came on the show. Folks, I'm talking to Travis Snyder, who was recovering from drug addictions for 7 years now. Certainly heard firsthand John Patton, who is the operation manager, standard speaker, put together the entire team, the Time Shamrock, put together an event fighting with the opioid crisis, searching for solutions. Is going to happen on May 23rd. Great. We'll come back. John will talk about the panels, etc. And it's 8:30 to 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Wiltsie Center. It will be broadcast live as well. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show. It's Fighting Back, the state of emergency opioid crisis, searching for solutions. John Patton's my guest, and Travis Snyder, who is recovering from drug addiction. John, you put together this informational thing on May 23rd. It'll be at the Wiltsie Center. Tell us again all about it.
Yeah, I think, again, after listening to Travis and going to the commercial, I think you come back and you're like, this is exactly why I did this. You know, there are people out there who are searching for solutions, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to put together the people that can help. You know, and listening to Travis, you know, I just kind of shook my head and said, yeah, this is why. This is why we try and do this thing. By not acknowledging it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And so, you know, again, what we try to do is put these together, these panelists together, and really sit down and talk about it. One of the things that Travis said that, you know, we're going to talk about is the second one we're hoping to do in connection with some of the local schools. And that way be, you know, like this type of thing on the school level.
Well, SSP TV, Samson Productions, they're for you 100%. You know that, okay? And we're here on May 23rd, folks. If you get a chance, go to the Wiltsie Center. If not, it'll be broadcast live on Channel 7. And you'll be able to at least get a knowledge. I want to thank you, Travis, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
John, it's always nice having you.
Appreciate you having us.
We'll see you next time.